Covering bases, Kieran Lovegrove. How's it going?
It is going well. It's been a pretty good day, and I'm happy to be capping it off here.
So yeah, you were coaching earlier.
Yeah, my A team had a game, and we didn't end up winning. But so I'm the pitching coach up at the high school, and
Yeah.
my pitcher showed me some heart.
Ooh.
They were all scuffling a little bit. None of them really had their stuff, but they all kind of bounced back. Showed me they had some heart, finished out their innings, and so I was happy with that.
See, that's what matters. All the heart and passion
Uh,
into it.
yeah, especially at that age. I mean, what's going to win you a lot more ball games is just physical strength and heart. Um, and right now, the kids are showing me a bunch of it. So,
Hey, that's good. So what do you do outside of coaching high school baseball?
oh man, right now I am just busy, kind of working with advocates and MTB, and um, really just having the conversations that I feel need to be had in minor league baseball. Making sure that we kind of know what we want.
Yeah,
Which to me, three main things being the housing, which has been addressed, but there isn't a set plan yet.
correct.
Um, Pay, which I personally think should be year round at minimum $30,000.
100%.
That's $15 an hour, 60 hours a week during the season, 25 in the off season.
Yep.
That's a pretty fair assessment of how we work. And the last being meals that are nutritious, and clubs really investing in the nutrition and microbiome of their players. Those three things I think could be addressed by all organizations tomorrow with the snap of a finger, and immediately they'd all see benefit from their players.
100%. Like I've been asked about like what I thought about like the housing situation. I'm like, yeah, like it's awesome, but like what are they going to do about the housing?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that they're aware that anything that is done outside of really taking care of the players, outside of actually putting the players' interests first,
Yep.
is going to come back to bite them.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a space where they can try and create loopholes like they have in the past.
I really hope not.
Yeah, and maybe it's a bit of naivety to think that they'll do it with the players' best interest at heart, but one way or another, we want to make sure the players are taken care of. So if there are stories coming out of certain camps that say, yeah, they provided us $300 extra and no help finding a place to live, that's not addressing the housing problem.
Yeah, no.
So very interested to see how the implementation goes. The word I've used over and over is cautiously optimistic.
Yep. I feel
it really depends on who's in charge. If the MLB passes it off to team by team, we have kind of the same issue we have across MLB right now, which is there's no standardization of the minor leagues. And one team, team A, let's say an AL West team, decides, all right, we aren't going to find apartments, we're going to give a stipend, and our players now have to find a place to live, let's say in California, on this stipend. Well, it's the 6-month lease that's hard to find. It's furnished apartments that's hard to find. It's doing that and being able to have a flexible lease that you can break if you get moved up. It's the logistics of housing that are 90% of the issue.
Yeah.
The not being able to afford housing is an issue related to our pay, not necessarily related to the housing. It's the logistics of housing that makes the pay even worse. So it's this kind of interconnected little nightmare scenario that we deal with every single spring to try and find a place to live. Me personally, what I would have liked to have seen as a player is arriving in a city, getting a key, going to where you live, turn the key, drop your stuff, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, truly a turnkey system, or if there are players who want to live separately and want to take a stipend, the ability to opt into a stipend. There needs to be flexibility to the system. There needs to be full coverage to the system. And I don't think it's a necessarily difficult thing to do. It's just the creativity required to get there may not exist in every organization.
Yeah, because now they have what is it? 4 months to figure it out.
4 months to figure it out. And almost certainly 2022 is going to be a bit of a cluster.
Oh yeah.
I think most players have that feeling, and rightly so.
Yep.
21 was a bit of a cluster in the beginning for certain teams, despite a whole year to plan for it.
Yeah.
So we will see with the housing. I know there are certain teams that will genuinely take care of their players. There's probably about 10 where I wouldn't worry what they would implement. There's about 15 that I have no clue, and there's probably about 5 where I know that they're going to try and screw their players.
Which is sad.
Yeah,
that's the big part that I do not understand, and then like why I do what I do. It's because like why wouldn't you as a MLB team and then a organization want to help and better the future of your own organization, which therefore looking from a owner's aspect will bring them more money. Why not invest your money in the correct way?
Yeah. I mean, really invest it wisely. There are teams that do it and they see the benefit.
Oh yeah.
And it's the teams that have been in the playoffs for the last 8 years.
That is true.
It's become frustrating, obviously, to continue looking at the problem and saying, well, why aren't we developing better players across the league? Why aren't
100%.
we investing in nutrition? Why aren't we investing in mental health? And I do think that teams are starting to push that way. It's just the fact that it's never been standardized.
Yeah.
That there are still teams that are fully fine remaining completely uncompetitive. That's what really like aggravates me.
Yeah.
Is that there's certain teams that are completely fine not only being uncompetitive at the big league level, but being uncompetitive throughout their system.
Yeah, I feel like that I can name a few teams that are
and I'm pretty sure anyone who watches enough baseball knows, because
correct.
It's been about 5 or 6 years of it.
Yep.
Of like really, really piss poor effort.
Yeah.
On the side of, I'll specifically say, the owners to up the budgets to make sure that these things are taken care of. To me, if you are an owner, you own more than a big league team. You own a franchise. You're an organization.
100%.
Every single one of those employees is still an employee under your banner.
Yep.
And I think it shows if you treat your employees poorly. And today's environment when it comes to labor is even more tumultuous than it was maybe when I first got in 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're not treating your employees right, you're going to get called out. I mean,
100%.
Straight up, you're going to get called out and the world's going to know about it. He's making a bed.
I was just looking at that. I'm like, is he pulling the covers to get under and then to pull it back up?
Yeah, he likes to make his bed. He's a very particular dog.
What a good dog.
Anyway.
No, yeah, go ahead.
I'll just distract him. When he lays down, hold on. Down.
It's like, but I need to find the right spot.
Down. There he goes. He'll get up in 3 minutes and move around anyway. He's been in his kennel all day, so I can't like really be mad at him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I've been working, my partner's been working, so
yeah.
Where were we? Oh, well, I was probably ranting about something, wasn't I?
Oh yeah. Okay, so I will. Yeah. So let's see. So the nearest minor league field to us, like up in Yakima, Washington, we have the Tri-Cities Dust Devils. Which, they're high A for the Angels.
Yeah, well, yeah, in Pasco, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I've heard not a lot of great things about Pasco.
Yeah, no, there is not too much to do down there.
Well, and like the facilities apparently really abysmal.
Yeah.
The food they were getting was bad, like really bad. Housing was not an easy thing to find. Because it's not a big town, really.
Yeah, no, there's a hotel across the street.
And they were saying it was just hot and dry, and then just like
that's how the place. Yeah,
yeah,
that's how it is over here on the east side of Washington State.
Yeah, I don't think many people really knew that. I didn't know that. I didn't know
Yeah,
that Pasco would get
no,
up to 100 degrees all the time.
no one knows that. Like it'll be 100 degrees in summertime, and then it'll be like single digits and snow in the wintertime.
Nope,
We
not for me.
and windy, and yeah, hard pass,
Yeah, definitely not for me.
hard pass. So, like, at what point of your playing career in minor league baseball, did you realize that there was issues?
That's a good question. I probably didn't fully realize it, like come to the understanding of how difficult some guys had it
Yeah.
until 2016, 17, maybe.
Okay.
The first
So
few,
pretty. I mean, so pretty far into your career then.
yeah, I was a bit of a bonus baby, and I was certainly kind of protected by the organization with the
Yeah.
Indians. They did an incredible job at raising me. I mean, genuinely, like taking a 17-year-old and eventually turning him into a pretty okay functioning adult.
Yeah.
From where I was at 17, that it was a lot of effort on their part. But I had some money, so I, would live in furnished apartments that, I'd live by myself because that's what I preferred to do.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize just how much I was hemorrhaging money away to do that. And so in 16, I got an apartment with some other guys, and that was a nightmare. Like the place was terrible. It was Lakeshore Towers in Westlake, Ohio. So I was with Lake County Captains. There's these two enormous towers right there on Lake Erie, and they were just not a great place to live. Like really like a gross place to live, and you have bugs, and we're on like the 13th floor, and they're paper thin walls, and the whole thing. And I ended up losing my security deposit in that place because one of the guys I was living with trashed his room, like dip spit bottles, and just like I lost $1,200. And because my name was on the lease, nothing I could do legally.
And that's a lot of money, like, to a minor leaguer.
Yeah, like that was the first time I realized, like, oh, I just got screwed.
Yeah.
Like I just really got screwed. Because I always wanted to be helpful. So like I told the guys, yeah, I'll put my name on the lease. I'll put the deposit down because I have the extra money. Like I'll get it back at the end, right? Well, certain teammates don't really have the same respect for others that some do. So
yeah,
it was a really unfortunate situation at 16. 17, mattress on the ground, like trying to save money. 18, mattress on the ground in a kitchen with blanket walls, like and then I happened to meet my partner, and she saw how I was living, and she was like, this is not for humans. Ended up staying with her more often than not because she had a couch.
hey,
like,
and couches are comfier than air mattresses.
Yeah, and like she had wine glasses and a pan and knives and like all the things we don't have.
The necessities.
This is something that isn't brought up very often as one of the logistic problems of minor league baseball. But when we arrive in a place, we don't have anything to cook with.
Yeah.
We don't have pans, we don't have knives, we don't have plates, we don't have furniture, we don't have internet, nothing.
And what's easier than to cook?
You just find whatever's nearby that's cheap.
Fast food.
And sometimes you're not even lucky enough to have fast food near you.
That is true.
I mean, sometimes you have to order food, and then you're adding $15 onto each order.
Say, because this was you said, or you're playing for Columbus?
This was in 18 hours with Akron.
Okay, in Akron. Okay.
Well, yeah, it started in Lynchburg, and I was actually staying with a friend that I'd met in 17 in Lynchburg, just to try and save money, and that worked out for a while. And then got moved up, got to Akron, and I was like, "Is there anywhere to live?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, we've got a living room." I was like, "Perfect." I bought a $150 mattress off Amazon. When it finally came, threw it there, threw some big blankets up around from Walmart, and bam, that's my little space. And while I am comfortable living that way, because it is very aesthetic lifestyle where like you have nothing.
Yeah,
you go to the field, you do your stuff, and you come back home and you go to sleep.
It's like the minimalistic.
Yeah, it's super minimalistic. I have no problem with that. But that's me. I'm not everybody else.
Yeah, see, I had the same thing. Like, so my so when my girlfriend and I, or like when she, like when she started to move in with me, I had TV, a table. I just had the top mattress to my bed, and I had like a lawn chair, and I was content.
And yeah, like, and that is the one thing that minor league ball has
And
really
my
made me
desk and stuff.
realize
Other
is
than
like,
that, yeah.
I don't need a lot to be happy. I cut my
Yeah.
closet down, like my entire closet, if I
Dude,
back up, probably takes up about that much space right now.
if I could show you mine, I have probably like half of this top row of clothes, and then my girlfriend has the whole entire bottom.
Yeah, and like
Because I don't need that much stuff.
Exactly, that was a choice I made. I was like, I want less choices in the morning for what I'm going to wear. I prefer to wear black, so why not find a black t-shirt I like?
Yep.
And wear black t. Like, I just wanted to simplify my whole life, and I realized, like, yeah, I don't need much. But if I don't need much and I'm still not, obviously I was on a free agent deal, but I kind of ran the numbers. If I don't need much and I still am not coming up positive on my paycheck,
yeah,
like if I'm living that lifestyle and I'm still coming up negative,
and that's a big issue.
Just trying to eat well, trying to, maintain any sort of athleticism. Like, if I can't do that on the budget that's given to the majority of minor leaguers, how do you expect them to do it?
Oh, I mean, like, you have to have like second jobs,
spouse, family.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what was it? Because I make this comparison that, like, so I live in a studio apartment and I pay $700 a month for it, which is actually like pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I mean, like, for up here in Washington State. And then so just imagine, like, if I didn't have to pay rent because housing was provided, that's $700 I could use towards food. I can use towards like a gym membership. I could use towards like a whole bunch of other things, which therefore will help me as a person, or even like as like an athlete, like, I mean, performance.
If I really sat here and dove deep into why I believe there are certain things that need to happen from the athlete development point of view, I think it would become abundantly clear that things should change very quickly.
100%.
The amount of information that we have coming out about individual persons' microbiomes in their gut and how it affects their mood. You have this thing called the gut-brain axis. Mm-hmm. It's this kind of communication that happens between your digestive system and all the microbes that exist there and your brain, which there are also a ton of microbes that exist in your brain. And that communication back and forth can be very easily disrupted if you are no longer being fed food that feeds your microbiome.
True.
So the Western diet is one of the worst culprits for decimating microbiomes across the board.
I believe that 100%.
It is
proven.
It's bad. Like it is a really bad thing that's happening, and we're totally accepting of in Western culture. But we have to start thinking about the holistic approach to athletic performance, which means making sure that nutrition, hydration, sleep, and mental health are all taken care of, because they all interact with one another. Anybody who's gone 8 hours in a day without eating knows you get a little cranky.
Yeah.
Like you get actually angry.
Yeah.
Part of the reason being your body is telling you need to go get food. Like you need to fight for food. You're starving in a sense. Not really starving, but for our lifestyle, starving. And like if we're not feeding good food, and if we're not feeding the microbiome, then we're just kind of eating these empty fillers.
Yeah.
And while we may be sustaining our body, from a survivability standpoint, like literally, yes, we can stay on our feet, we are decimating our ability to reduce inflammation, to fight off bacteria, to fight off viruses by decimating our microbiome. It is something that's going to be at the forefront of medicine here in the next 10 years.
100%.
It's going to be at the forefront of athletic performance, because the more biodiversity you have, the better. It's kind of to a point, like that is kind of how we look at it. And so teams finally addressing, hey, how do we get more fermented food into our players' diets without them, setting the clubhouse on fire because they have to eat something fermented. And like, for the Latino guys, especially, they're
Yeah.
coming over from a very specific, very kind of niche diet.
Yep.
That they subsist on and that their bodies are adapted to and they do very well on. And then they come here and we say, hey, here's a tray of mac and cheese and like pulled pork, go for it.
And then they're probably like, okay.
And they're like, yeah, but dairy is not a huge part of
Ooh.
Latino cuisine. And so you're running into problems with that. Like the fat content is not as high in Latino cuisine.
Yeah.
So now you're inundating them with saturated fat. Like all these little things aren't always thought of, but they really need to be if we're talking about developing athletes down to the finest details. I mean, if you want to give everyone a chance, that's the way to do it.
And so far, you are the guy to ask and talk to you about it.
Well, I really hope that comes to be the case. I would love to be involved in this because baseball's the love of my life when it comes to sport. Like I fell in love with it at a young age, in and out of love with it at times because it is a brutal game. It is a brutal game.
It will always be, I hate it, but I love it.
And then, you know, there's moments like the first kangaroo court we did this year, and I went, man, this is why I love this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like little things like that. It's the people you meet. It's the places you see. It's the experiences you have. There's a line that keeps coming up from a Fall Out Boy song because I've been listening to the Fall Out Boy from Under the Cork Tree album a lot lately.
Good man.
We only do it for the scars and stories, not the fame. Like that's minor league baseball in a nutshell.
That is
like we do it for the scars and stories because that's anytime you get minor league baseball players together, they're going to sit there and tell stories.
Oh yeah,
it's what we do.
I would say like is my favorite part about like playing was road trips. I loved sitting on a bus for a long trip.
Yeah,
just because well, right people, you have done it a lot more than I have.
But with the right people, they're unforgettable. I mean,
100%.
One of my favorite bus stories was in 19 when I was with the Giants and we were coming back from, I want to say Connecticut, and going down to Richmond, and our bus breaks down somewhere in the middle of New York, like middle of nowhere, New York. It's Memorial Day. And we just pull into this truck stop gas station and they go, yeah, it's going to be like 6 hours till we get a bus.
Ooh.
Everyone just walks inside. Like they only serve like up to 8%. So we're grabbing twisted teas and like Mike's Hard Lemonade, and we're getting like Swishers and cigarettes. And we're just like, fuck it. What else are we going to do for 8 hours, like 6 hours?
Yeah.
And it's Memorial Day. So we're like, yeah, let's someone get a speaker and let's just enjoy it. So we're sitting outside of this gas station on the benches, just having a great time.
That is awesome.
And that wouldn't have happened if you don't have good teammates around you.
Oh, for sure.
Like, it really is one of my favorite memories. That is, it came because our bus caught on fire.
Hey, it's the baseball gods telling you just to sit down and relax and
really
enjoy the ride.
Like, hey, go celebrate Memorial Day. You guys will get home eventually.
Say there's, like the whole part about like the mental health stuff. Because that's close to me. So like for the longest time, like I knew like I had issues, but then now like recently, like I've went to a psychiatrist like for all this stuff, and then like I've actually been like diagnosed with bipolar type 1 and manic depression.
Okay.
And I am like, then like I wonder like if I addressed that earlier, like in my life, like when playing baseball and then like other sports, like if I addressed that earlier, like if I focused on my mental health and then like myself, if I would have became a better athlete. So like the whole fact of like addressing mental health like in baseball, I feel that that's a big thing.
Yeah, especially for a game that is so nuanced.
Yeah.
If you have things going on in the head, it's really, really tough to play. If you've read my story, you're familiar. Like I suffered from depression and alcoholism and anxiety and undiagnosed, but probably have ADHD and cyclothymia and like, the things that we all kind of deal with as humans. It's a unfortunate side effect of modern society,
No,
in my opinion.
100%.
Now, I do believe that there are very tenable solutions to helping to solve these problems. But I noticed for me, it came from a place of like really deep loneliness, which was weird because I was always surrounded by people.
Yep.
But at the time, I was so walled off to anybody that I wasn't making any real connections. And even if I was making a real connection, I was sitting there telling myself, well, they don't want to hear, like, they don't want to be your friend. They don't want to talk to you. Because I can be a bit of an intense human being, and because I can go on these, tangents, I always feel like, well, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear you go off and talk about mushrooms for 4 hours. Like,
dude, I shit you not, I will talk to you about mushrooms for 4 hours.
That's what I'm realizing is I'm finding my tribe for the first time. I'm really like branching out, being myself, being authentic, being the extrovert that I actually am. Because when I get depressed, I get extremely introverted.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to leave my room.
That's it. That's exact same with me.
And it's this fear of putting yourself out there. It's the fear of rejection. One of my big trigger fears is abandonment.
Yep.
Like, I'm terrified of ending up alone. And once I started to understand how I worked, really started to dive deep into, all right, why do you think this way? What narrative have you been telling yourself for years that's leading to this? And really like trying to break it down to the fundamental, what are you saying to yourself?
Yeah.
And I noticed something when I actually started using cannabis, and I'm a very avid cannabis advocate.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was gonna ask you, I would say, because you were talking about being, or I would say like looking for like the holistic ways. Yeah.
No,
I have a whole entire bag right there. That's funny.
So I am a huge medicinal cannabis advocate.
Okay. Yep.
In that, I also want to really like clarify that and say there is absolutely ways to overuse cannabis.
Yes. 100%.
There were players this year who suffered from CHS, which is cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. Essentially, from my understanding and from what at least the literature sort of says, is that we obviously have all the CB1 and CB2 receptors of our endocannabinoid system.
Correct.
And as we use cannabis and flood our bodies with cannabinoids, our body tries to adapt to that by lowering our number of CB1 and CB2 receptors. Now, what happens is if we keep flooding with THC, which is a very powerful compound, and if we're not mitigating that with other compounds like CBD, CBG, CBN, CBA, to kind of mitigate that effect that THC causes, you can see this problem where you have almost no receptors left and you're still flooding your body with cannabinoids. Okay. Something about that interaction causes the body to reject pretty much everything. And one of the little understood things about CHS is that any type of cannabis, any type of cannabinoid may set it off again. So when like people start developing symptoms of it, it'll be gastric distress, nausea, and then vomiting that's persisting for more than a few days. Ooh. And it's like, you can't keep anything down. And it's, I mean, like I've heard it is going on as long as 14 days where people have to go to the hospital to have fluids put in because they aren't getting enough nutrition. So there are real threats to like overusing cannabis. Yeah. And, you know, we're talking about like going through an ounce a week, if not more. Like we're talking about really, really, really heavy usage.
That's like 24/7.
Yeah. It's
like you're
exactly. It's when you get to the point where your body can't regulate itself because it's now in this point where the endocannabinoid system is depleted. Okay. This is a very, very important system in our body that is not talked about enough because it was largely misunderstood, and also because it was associated with something like cannabis. The government went, we're not going to really throw money at that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, like for me, like, like for the longest time, like I would smoke or take an edible, like so I can sleep and like relax. And then I'm like, once you figure out like what works for you, like you stick with it. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
because the thing that people don't understand is that there's so many different strains and there's so many different like percentages out there, like that if you take like the wrong strain and all that stuff, and therefore you will have like the paranoia, and then
yeah,
like you
I
will.
mean, not understanding the side effects of cannabis can lead to anxiety attacks. If you
Oh,
don't
yep.
understand that, you know, heavy usage or even acute heavy usage of cannabis can lead to tachycardia, you
Yeah.
might think you're having a heart attack.
Yep.
Um, you know, if you don't know something like the cannabis shakes, which happens when, for me, typically, if I take a large amount of edible or if I smoke a good amount, there's an interesting effect that happens with cannabis where it drops your basal body temperature. And because of that drop, if you're also in a maybe a little chilly room,
Mm-hmm.
your body now thinks, oh, we're freezing, like we're going into hypothermia, and it starts to shake.
Huh.
It's this really bizarre thing that happens, and like all your muscles will tense up and you really will feel like you're not able to move. This is when we're talking about like 100+ milligrams of edible. Like this is, you know, big
At
doses.
once, yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
mean, I
this is a
stick
big
with like
dose
the
thing.
10 milligram. I mean, like I
Yeah,
just stick with that.
I'm more of an explorer. I'll go up to 100+.
Dude,
And
I would. I wish I could just like come over, and then because I want to try that.
I mean, I also grow my own plants, and
Yeah.
it became something that really changed my life during the pandemic because it gave me something to wake up for.
And it's a science behind it, and there's always more to learn.
Exactly. It was learning
Yep.
about the incredible interconnectivity of the soil,
Oh,
the
100%.
microbes. I
Yep.
mean, the mycorrhizal fungi, how they interact with the roots and how those interact with bacteria, and this incredible interconnected web that happens in every, you know, square foot of soil.
Yeah.
And that learning sparked me just so much inspiration. And then it was, like I said, the reason to get up in the morning to go and check the plants because they were different every day. They're a living organism.
Yep.
And the first time I had a seed pop up into a seedling, I will not, okay, I will not say that it was like having a child, but I was really happy about it.
You're like, it's the happiest day of my life. Like,
I had tears in my eyes.
hey, did
Like,
you name it?
no, I mean, they all have different strains,
Oh,
but
you should have named it.
it was, well, by the end I was gonna have to chop it down.
Oh, true.
But it was the feeling that I grew something from a seed.
Yeah,
like
true.
the basics of life. And it
I
brought me
love this. I
it brought
love
me an
this.
immense amount of joy. And you know, I just started another grow now. I think I'm 2 weeks in on one seed and 1 weekend on the newest seed, so they're not too far apart. But it really has become something that I absolutely fell in love with, and it is something that I want to advocate for in baseball.
100%.
To go around and talk to teams and say, here's what the science says right now.
Yeah.
Like, forget all the bullshit you were taught in school, because a lot of that was propaganda. Here's the actual science. Yes, it can be
100%.
helpful for certain people. It can also be very detrimental for others. If there are people that have any risk of schizophrenia or dissociative identity, anything that can cause that schism, probably should stay away from cannabis.
Yeah. That's what I mean, like, is my, like, so my psychiatrist, like, so she's, I mean, like, she's very pro cannabis.
Yeah.
So I mean like, so like with like the meds and all that stuff, I mean, like, it's more of like a lower dose, but like, because she said that like I can still take it for medical purposes. I mean, like, for like the night times, I mean, because like I have like bad like anxiety, and I mean, like, I will like lay in bed and just like destroy my own life in my head.
Oh yeah, see, the 6-hour stare is something I'm very familiar with.
Yeah.
Where you're just laying in bed and like you're staring at the back of your eyelids for 6 hours, you're not sleeping.
Yep.
Very familiar with that.
Yeah.
Dealt with, you know, pretty chronic insomnia. It was one of the things that really caused me a lot of problems in my career because, you know, I'd pitch one night and then I'd get 0 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And the next night I'd get 1 hour of sleep. And so my body was just breaking down through this whole time. And then by the third day, you know, I may have been throwing 98 on that first day. Now by this third day when I haven't slept, I'm at 92 miles an hour.
And that's a huge difference.
And the feel and the confidence and the sharpness of your mind, all of that goes right out the window if you don't sleep.
Sleep is very, very, very important.
One of my 4 pillars. Like to the high school guys, it's the 4 things I talk about every single day. I'm sure they're sick of me saying it, but sleep, hydration, nutrition, and mental health. Like those are the basic pillars, in my opinion.
I'm 100% with you.
If any of those suffer, the body suffers, the athlete suffers. And so I just, I pound that into their heads constantly. They'll come in and be like, oh, I'm not feeling too great today. Well, what'd you eat? Have you drank enough water? Did you sleep? If those are all fine, then I say, hey, like, is there anything going on off the field that you want to talk about? And I've made it very, very clear to my players, like, feel free to talk to me. I'm here for you guys. I may not have great answers, but I'm here to listen. Like, I understand that going through high school is not an easy time, and it doesn't always feel like there's someone there to listen.
Don't say that, like, and then like just someone there to listen to you. That's huge, like by itself.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's what I really hope to give those kids, and I'm already happy that they seem to have accepted me and enjoy my company.
Hey, that's
and
good.
Like having me as a pitching coach, and it just, that's another part of my life right now that's bringing me just an enormous amount of joy, is getting to work with them,
just coaching and helping out.
Yeah, just it's completely new to me. I've never really coached.
Yeah, it's a whole different aspect than playing.
And I told the kids, like, guys, I know baseball one way, and I'm going to teach you guys the same way, which means I'm not holding back. Yeah, I'm not dumbing anything down. We're learning professional things. I'm going to treat you all like professionals.
I think you've shown that it works. That whatever you do works.
Yeah, I mean, last year was the first year I went through the entire season, and I was sore twice,
which is amazing.
Like, I was in the training room once.
I wish I could say that, like back like in college. And I mean, like I would throw one day and I couldn't move my arm for like 7. It was just like
interesting.
Well, yeah, because then I realized that was my rotator cuff and labrum, like partially torn.
Yeah.
And then I just thought that like my elbow was hurting because I was trying to like overcompensate. And then like when I would not focus on that, then I would try and use my legs more, and then my legs were just done. And it was just like I was all fucked.
It's the entire kinetic chain. If one part goes,
it's very interesting.
That's why with my high school guys, I start from the heel. Like, if they don't have a good bottom half, I'm like, none of this stuff up here matters if we don't get the bottom half right.
That is true.
And I love the fact that they're buying in, and some of them are actually starting to see like big jumps because they're starting to make really big efficiency changes in their mechanics. And it's so exciting for me to see them like get something, to see that light up of like, oh, okay. And that's kind of where we've been. And like I said, that's something very new to me, but I absolutely love.
And say helping out others, and then using your knowledge like to help someone else out, and they like understand like all of everything. It's an amazing feeling. And so
go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh
no, I was like, I finally have the confidence in myself that I did 9 years of professional baseball. If I went to 9 years of school, like, I have a doctorate.
That's true.
And so I'm finally starting to accept, like, you have a doctorate in baseball. You sat there and watched
pretty much
so many games and so many high-level athletes move. Like, when I talk to my players, I say, I need to see how you move. Because if you don't move well, then we have to make changes to the basic mechanics of your ability to move.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten the chance to see just incredible athlete after incredible athlete hop on that mound and throw, and really watching what they do well, what positions they get into. And there seem to be a few that just come up in every single hard thrower.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, good drive direction, hip shoulder separation, and scap load.
Yeah.
Like, those 3 things going up the chain seem to be the keys to velocity. How we get there changes based on how we move. And I've just fallen in love with trying to tinker with efficiency and biomechanics. And
I can tell you're very much a numbers guy.
I like numbers, but I also very much like feel.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I need a guy to be able to tell
I
me
can understand that.
what he did wrong without having a Rapsodo or a TrackMan.
Yeah.
Because none of that stuff's out there when they pitch.
Nope.
So right now, like I'm telling those guys, in every pitcher that isn't in the game, I'm asking them, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? Because I want to build their instincts to where if they do something wrong or if they see someone do something wrong, it's immediate. They know it. They recognize it. Like that's where I want to get them to by building those instincts. And for me, it took years and years watching high level guys move.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do it to some of these seniors in like 4 months.
Yeah, which is that's kind of a
it's a task for
word?
sure.
Yeah. So there's, I mean, dude, like I'm hyped that you're a high school coach.
I never thought I'd have so much fun, but I also never thought I'd be so busy.
Well, yeah, because you've been, I don't say, because you had you actually did an article with June Lee.
Mm-hmm.
How did that go about?
So that came about from Harry Marino, who's the director of Advocates for Minor League Baseball. He and I spoke.
Yeah, I got my
fair ball wristband on.
Yep.
He and I spoke early in the year about housing. And by that point, I had already gone on multiple rants with the Angels org because what happened in spring training there really just pissed me off.
Yeah.
And we were given a sheet of apartments and none of them were viable. And I'm like, literally of the 8 apartments on there, we called every single one. Not one of them was viable for a player to go live in the first week of the season.
Wow.
Some of them were way, way, way too expensive. Some of them were not even close to the ballpark. They were like 8-9 miles away. Guys don't have cars. Like, some of them were obviously unfurnished. Some of them wouldn't do 6-month leases. And I was just pissed off about it because it's been happening year after year after year.
Yep.
Different organizations. I just keep seeing it. And it's such a stressful thing for the players to go through right before they have to start a season, which is stressful enough getting through spring training, getting towards the end, knowing like, all right, I made it through a spring training. And then you're immediately thrown into another extremely stressful situation. And then you're immediately thrown into the season. And so I got to the point where I was pissed off. Harry reached out and I said, yeah, like I'm in on it. I'd planned on retiring. Like, if there's one good thing I can do in my career, it is to stand up for these guys and make sure that they're taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I started a correspondence. And from that, he had been talking to reporters and he said, hey, June Lee, ESPN wants to do a story. Would you be willing to give comments, anonymously? And I said, nope, I'll do it with my name attached. Like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right.
Yeah.
And June came out in mid-July, I want to say. No, earlier than that. It came out maybe late June. Oh, I can't remember now.
In the summertime. And
during the season at some point. And I just told him, like, you're about to get way more than you asked for. And we started recording and I just let him have it. And I said, here's my story. I can only speak for myself, but here's what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it went well. I think
you did amazing.
Well,
that's how I found you.
It was authentic because I was just having a conversation with June.
Yeah, exactly.
But there was no, I wasn't embellishing anything. I wasn't telling anything that wasn't true, because if I had, almost certainly I would have been taken to court.
Yeah, things get really messy when you not say the right things, especially when you're, once you're under contract with your employer and you're pretty much saying, hey, this is what's wrong. Technically,
everything I did was full grounds to fire me, because I did a press interview without permission from the club. Like,
true.
There's a lot of things in our contract that pretty much own our voice.
Yeah.
But if you're planning on retiring anyway, but
shit, might as well.
Where's the fear?
Yeah.
but I didn't want to hold back. I mean, I wanted to speak genuinely with a voice that I've heard from a lot of minor leaguers.
Yeah.
It was not just mine. It was mine plus about 5,000 other guys.
Yeah.
Like those sentiments were not unique to me.
I think that every story that I have heard, I mean, I'm like they're all different, but they all fall under the, I guess, like the same realm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that it's the realization of, well, damn, that's really exploitative.
Yep.
Like they're full on in broad daylight exploiting us, and there's no recourse. There's nothing that we can do about it.
Oh yeah.
That frustration I think bubbled up forever, and despite my personal feelings towards social media, I think that was the only way that it was able to happen.
Oh yeah.
I fully believe social media is one of the greatest evils of the 21st century.
100%.
But it also has an enormous power.
Yep.
And the ability for people to see the truth unfiltered and kind of break the illusions they had surrounding the game. Really, I think it woke up a pretty big portion of baseball fans.
Yeah, I mean, like, because when I did my interview, like with Jeremy Wolf, we sat and talked for like 3 hours. It was just like I was in shock the whole time of like all like the actual stuff that happened.
Yeah,
I mean, my very first job, I was a bat boy for a low A team, and I was like 13, 14, and I was confused on why I had to go get them a drink from the concession stands because I was like, well, like, isn't it like provided? But they're like, and then they just laugh, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm like, I mean, like, but then now, 100% understand that.
Yeah, all the little weird workarounds that we've had to make, and all the little sacrifices have added up, and once they've been weighed and measured, we've realized that our sacrifices have been far, far larger than the sacrifices made by those in charge.
Oh, 100%. I mean, was like the average minor leaguer makes over their 7 year, like $6,887.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
No.
Especially just considering the skill level that we play at.
You guys are professional athletes that I'm like that everyone looks up to.
I talk about this over and over, and there's probably some big leaguers who'd be pissed off to hear it, but the difference between a big leaguer and a minor leaguer in terms of talent, like pure raw physical talent, an average big leaguer and a minor leaguer is like that. It's tiny.
Yeah.
It's consistency. It's the ability to use that talent day in and day out on a consistent basis, not taking at bats off, not taking pitches off. Like that's the difference maker.
I believe it.
It's focus. It's it's a lot of intangibles. It's maturity. All those things factor in. It's timing. It's whether or not the guy in front of you is hurt, or if he's hitting 360. Well, guess what? You're stuck.
Yeah.
Like all those little things add up to being able to move up. But if you're in professional baseball, you're in professional baseball because you have a chance to be a big leaguer.
Yep.
You at least have something that a team liked, even if it's, hey, this guy throws a ton of strikes and we can move him between high A, double A, and triple A back and forth and use him as a filler arm, because that's a real thing.
Yep.
Like there are plenty of guys in organizations who are just there to fill spots. And the organization knows it. The front office knows it. The players probably have a decent idea. And it's not something we talk about. And those players, if given the right opportunity, the right nutrition, the right coach, could be a 10-year big leaguer.
Exactly.
Like that's how small the difference is.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like, so like, as a front office, like, I'm trying to think of the question. So, like, is the front office like open with you guys or no?
That is,
or like
very
to a
much,
certain,
very much org to org.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest gripes from players, and I certainly saw it in my career, was lack of communication.
Okay. Which that's kind of like that's like an overall theme with anything that has issues.
Yeah. The inability to effectively communicate is very prevalent
in
baseball. There are certain systems who basically have a different style of hierarchy. So in certain systems you have, whatever the lowest staff member is, minor leaguers, minor league player development staff, major leaguers, major league staff, like all the way up the chain till you get to the owner. And there are other organizations where it's completely flat. If you're a cook, you have as much of a say, at least in your, facet of the game, as the director of player development. And it's everybody doing their job effectively and everybody communicating effectively across that line.
It's a well-oiled machine
where nobody feels like, oh, I can't reach out to them because they're the big league pitching coach. You go, no, I need to learn a slider, and that's the dude who teaches sliders, so I'm going to contact him. Like, it's having that complete flat ability to mix, match, change. This coach works with this guy really well. Like, they're in different affiliates, but let's get them on a video chat or something. It's understanding that the organization itself is not, 4 separate minor league teams and a big league team. It's 200 or so athletes that throughout the course of a season might see serious change from one to the next. You might do what the Rangers did. What was it, 2 years ago, where they had like 96 dudes on roster at one, like they went through pretty much their big league, AAA and AA staffs all the way to the big leagues. They all played. Like, it's, once again, not that big of a difference between a big leaguer and a minor leaguer.
That is true.
And we see it over and over and over. Guys will get called up from high A on a spot start, and dude goes 6 innings, punches out 8, gives up like 2. You'll take that from any big leaguer any day.
You would take that from any professional baseball pitcher right there.
Yeah, so like,
it's huge.
I really wish teams would, and especially like teams that have that really stratified hierarchy, squash it down and get rid of your ego.
It's kind of
everybody can be helpful to everybody else. Everybody has knowledge that you may not have. Even if you perceive yourself to be a great front office of 10 people, there are 500 minor leaguers who have information that may be beneficial. And if they don't get a chance to ever impart that knowledge onto anybody, it's lost.
It's like you never know if you don't try.
Exactly. Yeah. Like,
I mean, like, if you have a question, ask it.
Exactly.
I mean, because like the worst thing like that someone could say is no, or they just don't answer it.
Like, I think so many players fear the front office in certain organizations. I'll be clear. In certain organizations, players fear the front office because the front office walks around like an entity that is above everyone else. So younger players especially do not feel that they can bring up concerns or go to the front office and say, hey, I'm dealing with a mental health crisis right now, and I really need help. I can't imagine what it would be like for me at 17 through 22, never had the ability to do that. I was always terrified of bringing that up because to me, any sign of weakness was a sign that you shouldn't be playing baseball.
I mean, especially like for mental stuff too.
And like,
I mean, like for like a mental sport game, it's scary to have those feelings.
And like, if your team has the resources, but they don't give them to you, it can be very frustrating. Like, not every team has an employee assistance program. Not every team has mental skills coaches. Not every team, is at the forefront of making sure that their guys are happy. It was something interesting I heard from an AFL player where they had guys on their squad from one of the, what I consider the upper echelon organizations. And they said, these guys just seem happier every day. They're excited. They interact with each other. They're energetic. He was like, their entire aura of those guys is different than us. And, he's with an organization that I wouldn't put in the top 10. And like, he saw the realization of how big of a difference it was to have good food, to have good, mental skills coaches, to have an organization that respects you as a human being, to have an organization that is not trying to fundamentally control your life.
Yeah.
Like they saw a very, very palpable difference in those players.
It's, I mean, so like for like me, like on the outside looking in, it's kind of like, okay, like, cause I work for a company where like the pay isn't like all the best, but we have great benefits, and our supervisors and like the higher up guys actually like care about us like as people. So therefore we're happy and we want to be there. And that alone of wanting to be there is huge.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the greater kind of macrocosm of the labor shortage in the United States today, most of the jobs that people don't want to work are jobs where you're berated by customers.
Yep.
Because apparently, you didn't get enough mayonnaise on your fucking sandwich. And like that's the type of stuff that people actually berate another human being over.
Well, yeah, like so my girlfriend, so she's a server / bartender like at a restaurant.
Yeah. My partner as well does bartending, and yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and then I hear crazy stories of just like the smallest things that people bitch about.
Yeah, and just like the complete lack of respect for human dignity.
Just being a decent human being.
Like I remember one time my partner and I went out somewhere and they were having like, staff problems. Someone had to go home early. They were sick or something like that. And the guy's trying to tell us like, oh, we're running. And we were just like, no, you're completely fine. Like, come to us whenever you're ready. Like, we're not trying to add stress to you. And at the end of the night, he came up and he's like, thank you so much for being so nice. I'm like, dude, we did the basics. Like, bare minimum should be to make sure that another person who's in a more difficult position should be allowed some wiggle room.
It's sad.
Like that maybe their feelings should come first in that moment, not, like I said, your fucking sandwich.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because that exists in a lot of other spaces.
100%.
And I think for minor leaguers, the way it relates is there were always people telling us like, no, the minor leagues is supposed to be a grind. You're supposed to suffer. Why? That doesn't make any sense if we're trying to win ball games.
Yeah, nope.
Like we should be thriving. We should be given every opportunity to develop. We should be given every opportunity to put on weight, lose weight, do whatever we need to do to get better. And if organizations have just willfully ignored certain aspects of development because, oh, it helps our bottom line by $5 million.
Well, like, yeah, but they will blow the 5 million on something else. That's irrelevant.
Yeah, the money's never been the issue. That's the most frustrating part, I think, to everybody is money's never been the issue. And even after the I'm sorry, most of these owners have billion-dollar portfolios. Therefore, they had people in place to allow them to make money from the pandemic. And if you don't believe me, well, we had a 16% increase in billionaires during the pandemic.
Numbers don't lie on that one.
Sorry, everybody. Like how they took advantage of a horrible situation and made hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yep.
And not just the owners, like wouldn't you if you had $1 billion and you could go, yeah, I'll throw, $200 million at this and make 600 over the course of 15 months.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
And
I will take my $10 and make $80.
More than anything, it was extremely frustrating for me to try and stomach owners saying, well, we lost a lot of money.
Bullshit.
You did you? Well, let me tell you what we dealt with.
Yeah.
The A's tried to not pay their players.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because like people don't also understand that like you don't get paid unless you play and there wasn't a season.
Championship season, that is all we get paid for. The 5-month championship season is all of our contract stipulation, 22 weeks a year. That's the only time that we get paid. Out of 56 weeks that, we are probably working for, is it 56 or 52? However many weeks are in a year.
50-ish.
We're working for 50 of them.
Yeah.
Like I took my time off. I'm back into training already, and I don't even know if I'm going to play next year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if a team's going to want to sign me. I don't know if I'm going to be in shape enough to even be signed. Like, all that depends. But
what's your dream job besides, I guess, well, I mean, like you did state that like baseball is your life.
Yeah, I absolutely love it.
But your dream job.
So outside of baseball, I wanted to get into academia.
Okay.
I just have a very curious mind. I have to know things. I have to challenge things. Like, dream job is maybe being a professor. I think I would find a lot of joy in being able to teach every day.
Yeah.
And to be able to do research projects. I like the idea of being a writer. Basically anything that keeps me out of a building keeps me out of like a chair.
Yeah.
I don't want to be stuck in a chair all the time.
Yeah. See, that's what I do right now. I mean, because I do accounting. That's my day job, and then I come home and I just try and crank out podcast stuff, and I just come up like with ideas. But like being a professor, that would be amazing. And just from talking you from this past hour, you would have a kick-ass class.
Well, unfortunately, philosophy doesn't pay very well. And as much as I would have loved to have been a philosopher and just sit around and question the universe, and people would be like, "Oh, you're so fucking brilliant." That's not the case, and that doesn't really exist any day. And not that many people would think I'm that brilliant, but there's certainly a subset who would listen to me and go like, "Oh, that's fantastic."
Dude, I would sit and listen to you. It's like,
well, it's a
I'm telling you, a 4-hour conversation about mushrooms.
It's eloquent insanity. It's really what it is. Like, it's the ability to put my complete insanity into a pretty little word package. I realized I had that ability where like I can talk about really obscure subjects. I did a LGBTQ podcast the other day, and I started talking about, my theory on bonobos and human sexuality and a few other things. And like, he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to have you back on for that one." I'm like, "Sure,
okay, deal."
I am happy to talk about all the insane things I read and write about. And it's not always a good thing. I'll tell you that, because on the mound, you don't want to have that much thought going on.
You gotta not think.
It's very hard for me to turn off my inner monologue because I don't have inner visualization.
Yeah.
I have something called aphantasia. There's a spectrum of it. Basically, if you have aphantasia, when you close your eyes, you see the back of your eyelids. That's it. I'm slightly above that, to where the best way to describe it is, like a sparkler that you'd have on 4th of July.
Yeah.
And how when you run that across your eyes, you kind of get the after image.
Yeah.
That little after image glow is about the closest I get to building structures in my head. Other people have hyperphantasia, where if they think about a red apple, they can see the red apple in extreme detail, almost to the point where they can smell it.
I think
a lot of people fall somewhere in the middle.
I've never really thought about that whole theory, but like for me, like I can think of ideas and I could like picture doing them.
Yeah, like the imaginative vision is there, but you can't build like a structure out in front. Is that the best way I can describe it?
I'm like, if I think detail by detail of how to do it, I can. But I think that's why I'm so like, I feel
you like, it sounds like you have a very aggressive inner monologue as well.
Yeah. So my mom, so she's a high school art teacher. She's very, very creative. So she's just like do whatever you think like something can happen, go do it. And then my grandpa, like he should be like a world famous engineer because dude, like he's like MacGyver on steroids. Like he can make absolutely anything. Like that. And then I mean, because I grew up out in his like garage, just building stuff, and then just like asking questions. And then I have like the creativity like from like my mom and like just like I like being like, yes, he's making his appearance.
Yeah, well, he's complaining. I know, but we haven't played all day. Okay.
Yeah,
No, I like when I first found out, like, oh, you can't visualize. This was years into my pro career.
Yeah.
And the amount of days that I sat in a classroom in pro ball being told, all right, visualize you're on the mound, see the stadium. And I'm sitting there going,
do that.
All I see is the back of my damn eyelids, like nothing's happening.
Yes.
It was so frustrating to me because I always thought, well, you're pretty intelligent. You can think your way through this. But my brain just straight up does not work that way. Yeah. It's not the structure that I have. I have a very strong internal monologue to the point where I'm almost having conversation with myself throughout the day.
Oh,
just constantly.
Oh, I do that. I thought that was an issue like with me, but then like I talked to a psychiatrist about it, and then she's like, well, no, like that's kind of normal.
It's just what the words are saying.
Exactly.
That's a very, very key point. And, you know, bringing it back to cannabis, the one thing that allowed me to do is it did not allow me to lie to myself.
Yep. Gotta be truthful.
Which was a very, very interesting thing to happen because I am an incredible procrastinator and I'm an incredible bullshitter to myself, especially. And I would notice that, you know, to just give a brief example, you know, say I just finished eating and I'd go to put my plate in the sink.
Yeah.
If I'm completely sober, I'll put it in the sink and my brain just may be somewhere else and I'll just walk away. Oh, let me get my camera back to focus. But if I had smoked and I go to put my plate in the sink, I'll like, maybe my brain will tell me, oh, you'll do it later. And then this other voice will come in and be like, no, you won't. Like, just wash it and put it in the dishwasher. Just do it.
You and I are the same on that one. That's crazy.
It's a very interesting thing that happened to me. And I noticed how it started to change a few of my patterns.
Yeah.
And so now, even if I'm fully sober, I just like my patterns have gotten to be more effective because
it's
wasn't
like
able
muscle
to
memory. It's like the muscle memory like in your brain.
It's knowing that it's a lot easier to just do it.
Oh, 100%.
Like understanding, hey, just get it done. Like if you just get it done, you don't have to do it again. Like it's really, really simple concepts that sometimes we lie to ourselves so much on.
Yep.
That we just fall into that loop. And being able to break that pattern either by, you know, for me, it was using cannabis to gain a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I went from an internal perspective to an external perspective. And now I could look at what I was doing from an objective point of view, you know, kind of observing the observer is one way to put it. It's seeing out of your eyes, but it's the brain behind that that's really doing everything.
It's the third eye.
Like
it's the third eye.
It's sitting back and watching the world happen and only reacting to it after it's gone through that first filter.
Yeah.
And it's something I gained from reading Marcus Aurelius, which I recommend to anybody who is struggling with anything.
I should do that.
It's an incredible, it's not really a book. It was a dictation that he did in 152, whatever it was. And he was dictating in Greek to a writer, and these were just his inner thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And they are some of the most profound questions and thoughts that were never meant to see the light of day that eventually came out as his book Meditations. And you can just read it over and over and things will stand out to you. And it just gets you meditations. It is the structure of it is very loose. It's literally like, you know, it'll be like 3 lines and then it'll jump to something a little bit different, but it's all dictated from him and there's a little bit of theming to it. But there's certain passages in there that I've highlighted and read over and over because they offer a very simple way of looking at a very complicated world.
I am going to buy that book right now.
Absolutely. I recommend it to absolutely everybody. It is one of the pillars of Stoicism. Not that I believe everybody is built to be a Stoic.
Yeah.
But I think that there are lessons in Stoicism that can apply to a lot of people that may help you out in certain parts of your life. And so, yeah, I when did I pick that up? I picked it up last spring, maybe a little bit before then. And I read it and just fell in love with it and took some of those lessons into the year, and it helped me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think like just from like shit you not, like just this conversation like with you has probably helped me out quite a bit. Like, I mean, like just, I don't know, just to have like faith in humanity. I think you helped me out on this one.
There's still hope. I know that
yeah.
The one thing that I feel has been taken away, because how old are you?
27.
Okay, so we're the same age.
Yep.
The one thing that I feel has been taken away from our generation and younger is hope.
Yep.
Hope for 100%. A future that's going to be better. I mean,
Yeah.
the climate crisis is a huge one. We have an impending financial crisis. We have a housing crisis. Like, everything is being done for the right now. And those of us who have to live in the future, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of optimism or hope for it.
It's kind of like, I mean, like if you think about it, I mean, because you hear people like that joke and say, we're fucked. It's kind of, I mean, like to a certain sense we are, because we have to live like in this future, and because of like the generations like below us, it's kind of hard to trust other people.
Yeah, there's you can not a lot of altruism.
I'd say because like as like one person, like you can only do so much.
Yeah, I think I will say though, I had a bit of an epiphany when it came to what one person could do.
Yeah.
And it was the realization that because I am such, in the grand scheme, an insignificant person, I had the ability to speak loudly. Because my personal career, in the grand scheme of baseball, and this is a very small microcosm if we're talking about just baseball.
Yeah.
My career really doesn't matter to the game as a whole. My voice, when speaking out to protect those coming after me, and to make sure that those in the game now are continued to be taken care of and are not being exploited. Once I realized I can speak very loudly because I'm just one little tiny fraction of the whole. But because I'm a part of it, and because, I know it, I can speak for the whole in a way. And the voice becomes very loud.
And you do an absolutely amazing job at it.
Well, thank you.
And then like with that, we're just gonna wrap this up.
Yeah,
I think this is an absolute amazing conversation.
No, and then I would be happy to have more. Like I said, I've always got plenty to talk about.
Dude, we can have a conversation for an hour about mushrooms.
Like, if you want to do a mushroom podcast, I will absolutely be there for it. My teammates made fun of me so much this year because everywhere we went, like if we were out on the field after rain and there were these little mushrooms popping up, I'm squatting down next to them and looking.
You're like, let's go.
And I'm explaining to them, like, this is mycelium. This is how it works. This is what a mushroom, like.
Yep.
And then, now the best thing I would recommend to anybody, go watch Fantastic Fungi on Netflix.
Dude, yes. That's
incredible, right?
Dude, that is where, like, I watched it. I was stoned for one.
Oh, that's a good start.
Dude, like I watched it. I was like, what is this? And then I went on a spree of Google. Like,
it's incredible. And like, have you seen the research coming out of Johns Hopkins with psilocybin? And
I've been on YouTube and I searched like a few things.
Then I'm sure you've seen people talk about.
Yeah.
The research coming out for psilocybin is spectacular.
And that, I would say,
world-changing type spectacular, in my opinion.
That's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole nother podcast that we
can do. With this one, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, I'm saying, it went kind of the typical Lovegrove way, which is just goes all the different directions.
Hey, but you know what? This is your episode, and I'm glad that you are a guest on my podcast.
Well, I really, really appreciate it. That was a lot of fun for me. Yeah.